Welcome to Think and Tackle Podcast. Now, if you haven't already, please remember to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Now, today we are joined by Mr. Danny Fairbrass, a man who has many hats. And today, the hat you're wearing is the Embryo hat, Dan.
Yep.
Because we've never done an Embryo podcast.
We haven't.
And perhaps there are people out there who don't even know what Embryo is. So that might be a good start to just outline what is Embryo.
Yeah. Where have they been, if that's the case? So basically, the whole point of Embryo is to secure fishing for the future, for as long as there is angling. And it all came about, I'm sure you remember, there was a sponsored angler social up at Horseshoe in Lechlade, Carp Society Water, and you and Mark Bryan and a couple of other people were telling me about what was happening in the Cotswold Water Park and how many big uns from their lakes were being taken by otters, and how lakes were being irreversibly changed in one winter. All the big uns gone, or the two big uns everyone wanted to catch gone, taken by otters. I'm not demonising the otter. It's not the otter's fault. The otter's just being an otter. You know, it's a human problem, not an otter problem. Otters were reintroduced into the wild with not massive, maybe a massive concern for what they were going to eat. And what basically happened, as far as I'm told, over the 50s and 60s, otters died out because of pollution in the rivers, because of pesticides, and they were not able to reproduce as effectively. That's what I'm told. I don't know if that's exactly true or not, but for whatever reason, otters died out as coarse angling really took a foothold in this country. So the number of fish went up, the number of otters went down, and that's how it stayed until otters started to be reintroduced into the wild by the wildlife enthusiasts, so we say, in groups and what have you. But as I say, there was not a great deal of thought given to what they were going to eat. That also coincided with the freshwater eel population in the country plummeting, I believe, through predation by birds. Mm-hmm. So the otter's favourite food, the freshwater eel, was in scarce supply. So the otters first of all turned to the fish that were already in the rivers they were being introduced into. Those fish had grown up having never dealt with a predator like that. Fish are very lethargic in cold water. Otters are warm-blooded, so they're not. And especially barbel and stuff like that were very easy pickings, and they chomped their way through some of the record barbels. That's I'm right. Sure you've been, you know well, because you lived in that part of the world, didn't you?
I did for a while in Bedfordshire.
Yeah. And it's really bad in those sort of that sort of Midlands sort of corridor. And then when they've eaten all the fish in the rivers, and it was like that, wasn't it? You know,
you had the triple threat of crayfish. The
crayfish eating the
birds,
eggs, crayfish eating the eggs,
fish eating birds eating
the small fish,
and then the otters taking the adults.
So fish were, which has always happened, you know, but obviously signal crayfish coming in from America, much more aggressive, pushing out the Europeans, overtaking rivers, a lot more eggs getting eaten than used to be eaten by the native crayfish. A lot more birds coming in from the sea for one reason or another, taking the smaller fish, and then otters into the equation as well. Which, if it had been a naturally occurring thing over that whole period, I think fish would have grown wary of otters, grown up with them, and we're seeing it now. That in lakes that are not fenced, the carp are learning to avoid the otters. Their behaviour is changing. And as a result, more are surviving. There's no doubt that is happening. But then the otters have gone to the next available food source. They eat birds as well, which I know a lot of people try to keep quiet, but they do. They eat mammals. Absolutely. You know, they eat pretty much anything they can get their claws on. Very successful predator. You certainly wouldn't want to be locked in this room with one. No. You know. So otters then turn their attention to the lakes that are near the rivers, and they are and eat as much as you like. Chinese takeaway buffet, on every corner, with no limit to the amount of times you can go and feed there. And the carp population got absolutely whacked in those areas where otters became prevalent again. And again, it's not the otter's fault. The otter's just doing what it was designed to do, what evolution has designed it to do. And I was really worried, because there's no predation in Essex at all at that point. It was something I'd heard of in the distant counties away, but not something I'd been affected by. And listening to you guys, it really worried me.
It was a worrying moment. That sort of period was probably the worst moment, I think, for many of us. It looked like nothing was going to be spared.
Yes. Yeah, and I could tell the real concern in your voices and on your faces.
We'd seen it. We'd had it happen to us.
Yes. So I thought, what can I do? So I got involved in the Predation Action Group, which was a group of very well-meaning, experienced anglers that were trying to give angling a voice and trying to do something about it. But there was a lot of talk and not much action from that. And after a couple of very long meetings, I thought, I'm not going to make a difference to this situation here. It's a lot of old boys saying how terrible it is and all agreeing with each other, but no real action. I know things were done, and I'm not taking that away from the guys that, I know Tim Paisley was pivotal in things really starting to happen there. But I thought, what can I do that has an immediate and lasting impact on the situation that helps to secure and grow angling? And I thought, if I can help people fence the lakes that they've already got for a lot less money than they would be paying off of a normal fencing contractor, making it seem doable, making it available and affordable, and if I can create more fisheries from places that are either waning or are not fisheries, then I can make as much difference to the sport as possible. And the thing, there's loads of people saying, oh, Dan was worried about Korda going under, and complete and utter twaddle. We had Korda Europe, we're almost a worldwide company. As far as carp angling spans, we're there as well. It wouldn't have actually made a massive difference to me if the amount of angling in the UK had dropped a bit. Certainly to me financially, it would have made no difference. What I thought about was the young lad like me when I was 14, 15, cycling to Moores Lane in Brentwood, from my house in Collier Row, every day of the school holidays, catching skimmers and crucians and then a carp and having a one rod out for carp and a float rod. Where are them lads going to go fishing if all these places have been absolutely decimated, And I thought about all them young lads that are not even anglers yet, that will never become anglers. They will never experience the sport that I love, that has given me so much, because the amount of waters have dwindled so much that unless it's £1,000 a year syndicate behind a fence, you've got no chance of getting in. So how are they going to get into the sport in the first place? So we set about making money available for places that wanted to fence their lakes, either doing it for free if it was a really worthy cause, or doing it at cost, to turn the price from £25 a metre installed to £12 a metre, for example. Maybe not exact, but for example. And that made it much more doable. We were paying wages. We had a fencing team that lived like dogs in a caravan by the lake. Fair play to them, Stu Dabborn and all the guys that worked with him. They worked from before it was light until after it was dark, continuously, to put fences in places that were very, very difficult terrain to put them in. But they did it because they were dedicated carp anglers. They wanted to do something for the sport, and we had the money behind us to make that happen. So that was one arm of it when we very first started, and the other arm was creating the fisheries. And what we looked for were places like Stanton, for example, in Oxford, that we've bought. The Vauxhall Club. I used to drive past that lake on the way to Linear, looking across at the lily pads and all the overhanging trees, thinking, God, that looks wicked in there. Never thought to even look on the gate to see the name of the club that ran it. Thought, I'm never going to get a ticket for there. And went on I went to Linear. And the Vauxhall Club, based in Bedford, didn't want it anymore. There were less than pleasant individuals fishing over there that made it quite uncomfortable, I think, for other members fishing there. And for that reason or others, I don't know exactly, the club were interested to sell it. They'd heard about Embryo. I'd already put the video out, to get somebody to run Embryo. which obviously became Matt Pettit, and you were part of that interview process, which is quite uncanny, really, isn't it? Like that.
Yeah.
We're sitting here now talking about it. 10 years on, we've never done a podcast.
Is that what it is? 10 years?
Yeah.
Wow.
We've never done a podcast about it. We both thought we had done a podcast about it, but we haven't, because so much has happened. And you were working for Korda at the time when we were employing people, and I very much and still do respect your opinion on everything. And I wanted you to, as a sounding board, to say, yes, I agree, I think it's that guy, or got my doubts about that guy, And we couldn't have picked a better person, could we?
Do you remember what it was about Matt that you sort of...
Yeah, it was him talking about all the roach being eaten in the Nen, and him going to float fish for those roach in the Nen, and what is going to happen when the Nen has just been completely wiped out of all carp. Where are the young lads going to fish? And I thought...
Same page as you on that.
Same page. And this guy really loves it. He was obviously a very, very good carp angler, which I thought was really important. You could just... they just speak in a certain way, don't they? And you just know that they know what they're talking about. And you know when they don't know when they're talking about as well, don't you? You know when a person's winging it a bit, and they're an occasional angler, but they're trying to put on that they're a dedicated carp angler. But he was the real deal. But also, I remember he worked for Coca-Cola in the vending machine department, and what would it be? I suppose department you call it, wouldn't you? Arm of the business. And if they knew that a driver was stealing, that was delivering to the vending machines, and they'd caught him, Matt had to chase that person in his car around wherever, London, the home counties, and catch up with them, basically tell them they've been caught, and then sit in the Coca-Cola truck with them until the authorities came along to take him away. And he's only a slightly built guy, Matt, isn't he? He's typical, amazing, under-the-radar big carp angler. They all seem to be built the same way, that you wouldn't even know they were there. The grey man, and he really is. They say that about the SAS. He is the special forces of fishery management. He really is. He will never give up. He's worked so many hours, endured so much, covered in mud and crap and everything, doing nettings in the middle of the night, walking fences that may have had a hole in them to make sure the otters don't get in, all night walking the fence. Doesn't have to do it, so we couldn't have picked a better person. And when he said, look, because I said, what are you going to do about boundary disputes on lakes and all that sort of thing if two burly carp anglers are going at it? And he said, Dan, if you can sit in a car, if sit in a truck with a burly truck driver who's been done for stealing for 4 hours and get free. He said, if I can do that, I'm sure I can work. I can sort out a boundary dispute. Yeah.
That's
I bet he's like a taekwondo black belt or something in secret.
He would be if he wanted to be.
It wouldn't take him long either, would it?
He doesn't. He never gets angry, surely, Matt.
He does. He does. Like very recently, we had a couple of fish stolen out of a new embryo lake in Essex that's coming online. Just about now, and a couple of fish got stolen out of that, and he was bristling about that.
10 years in, though, that's not bad. It's not a bad record, is it?
No, I mean you do. He turns his displeasure or disappointment with a situation into action. Which is great. He doesn't go around throwing his weight around. He just gets on with it. Amazing guy. I couldn't have found anybody better. And I'll take a bullet for the bloke. Just, absolutely lives and breathes.
So when we interviewed these blokes, Dan, what was it you were looking for, and what kind of role was it, and what did you think that they would end up doing?
A really good negotiator, somebody that can get people to sign up for us to be tenants. A good. What's the word? Somebody that's going to ferret out these venues, like a sort of reconnaissance guy, if you like, and ferret out these places that could be great carp fisheries, find out who owns them, get in contact, get a meeting arranged, and say what needs to be said to get it over the line. That's one thing. And at the same time, organise the fencing to make sure it happened on time, within budget. Build relationships with the fish farmers, because we bought a lot of fish over the years, and work every hour that God sends without moaning about it.
And to fit in being an assassin of a carp angler in the
being an assassin of a carp angler and a dad of 2 young kids, and he does that, and all credit to him.
So he was the first employee of
Embryo. It was me and him at
Yeah.
the start for the first year or so, year maybe, yeah.
And how quickly could you start to accomplish the things that you'd set up Embryo to achieve?
Not as quickly as I would have liked. But that's the story of my life, isn't it? But I hoped, because I'd wanted to get my own lake for years. I'd wanted to have my own lake, run it how I wanted it, and I did that in part with Gigantica, but it's in another country, so you're dipping in and out.
You
and
could
trying
have done
to
this in
manage
a
from
much
afar.
easier fashion, though, Dan, than you've done with Embryo. If that had been your sole aim.
Well, yeah, but you to find these places, you've got to be on it full time, because you're always the last bloke to the party. You hear about somewhere, Carthagena. You hear about it's gone for really good money, and well done, Jerry, for getting it. You hear about it once it's been sold. You never hear that it's up. So you've got to live in that world and constantly be given leads and follow them all up. And it was a 10-to-1 ratio, I would imagine. For Matt will probably tell you it was more. I mean, it was great that he came in and did a podcast. And if you haven't listened to it, please do, because it ended up being more about his angling and less about Embryo, which I thought was great, because he never tells me anything about his angling either. And I speak to him every day. So, but it was at least a 10-to-1 hit ratio, 10 leads to one thing that came to fruition. So after, I think in the first year we got South Ings, which were 2-3 at the time, bomb holes in the back of beyond in Hull. Neil Gilberdyke, it was Neil, wasn't it? Where Clive lives, Gilberdyke. Clive was the tip off. Clive Gibbons. He had his own lake in that area. He said it was too much and too deep for him. And at the start, we were just taking anything we could possibly get. You don't take 50-foot deep lakes as carp lakes and in the north and expect to create something.
But they're doing big fish now, aren't they?
They're mega up there. There's the same with all the Embryo lakes. I walk around them lakes on my own from time to time, and it fills me with such an enormous sense of pride and achievement, because there is a tangible result for my effort of running Korda for all these years. The money has been spent generating this living, breathing thing that I can see that all these guys are enjoying on a day-to-day basis, week to week. Relationships are formed on the lake. Relationships are formed in their families. Great experiences are had. Because I wanted to create a fishery there, and that's something I'm like really, really proud of. And every time I go to an Embryo lake, I do the laps, and I still think like that now, 10 years later. But we got South Ings, stocked it with various strains of fish, completely barren round the outside of the lakes. 2 of the lakes have now been joined to make them one. It's all grown up. There's fish to nearly 40 pound in there.
Amazing.
Quite a lot of 30s now. I love the fishing up there. If it was closer to home, I'd fish it all the time. I love deep lakes. You're fishing in 18 to 20 foot in the margins, and it goes down to 50 foot. And we've got a very stable membership there of guys that all get on. And, it doesn't compete with the likes of the... what's the other one up there that's got the Croatian fish in it? There's a couple, isn't there? What's the one that sticky?
Do you mean Willows?
Willows, that's it. Doesn't compete with the likes of Willows for the size of fish, but I think they're amazing carp that we've got in there, and there's grow-ons coming out of it now as well, which are amazing fish, and it's 2 really nice syndicate lakes with a really great membership that wouldn't have been before.
I kind of remember, maybe you'd be able to enlighten me on this one, Dan. I remember Matt being really down about one moment when I think you just stocked recently fenced water in the northeast, and the otters got in
It was that late.
and got walloped.
It was
straight-
South Ings.
was it?
Yeah, it was South Ings. Yeah, but we'd had the fence put down. We'd stocked the fish either just before or just after, and the fence had a return going along the floor, but wasn't dug into the ground. And the ground underneath was soft where it had poured with rain, and an otter had forced itself underneath this 500 mil long return that's under tension, pushing against the grass, and it had managed to work its way under that and get in. And I think we lost 14 fish or something in 2 nights. You know, it wasn't even open as a fishery yet. And someone's, you know, I think Colin, the guy that eventually ran the syndicate and still does, said, there's bodies everywhere floating over the surface, you know. And then Matt's gone up there, and sure enough, they found this thing. And that was when Matt walked that perimeter.
Right, yeah, that's what made me think of it.
All night, walked that perimeter to make sure that otter didn't get back in. And then the next day, the entire perimeter of 10 or 12 acres, whatever it was, they pinned every single bit of fence down with those sort of U-shaped pins to make sure the otter couldn't get underneath it. Yeah, that's the level of commitment.
And there's the result, that you now have this fishery that's...
The result is we've now got a fishery with amazing 30-pounders, and there we are.
Are these
There's some of them.
These are South Ings fish, are they?
Yeah.
Have you fished
And
it at all, Dan? Have you been
yeah,
there?
I've done. I did a deep water masterclass up there a few years ago, and I fished it a couple of other times. They're mega, aren't they?
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think these particular pages are as up to date as they could be, because this is the thing.
You've dropped someone in it here, Tony.
I want it. But it's. I've talked to the boys in the Embryo. That unnamed 2's nice, isn't it? That's a lovely shaped common. That mega heart-shaped tail, really long, overslung mouth. £29. What was that? 29.8 is it? 28.8. Go back to unknown 2.
28.6, yeah.
28.6, yeah. That's a mega fish. That's going to be a big one. But what I wanted as well with Embryo was for it to, it's aimed completely at the guy, the working man, that hasn't got all the time in the world, that isn't a sponsored angler, and I wanted it to be fair for everybody. So when we did the website, I wanted every fish within reason to be listed. So if you were going to potentially join that lake, you could see what was swimming around in there, because so many clubs and syndicates, you see a couple of pictures in an album
15 years ago,
or on somebody's phone or whatever, and you're sort of joining off the back of a handful of captures, and you just have no real idea of what's in there. Now, I know some people love the mystery of that, and if that's what you do, then fine, carry on fishing those places for mysterious carp. But for the average guy that's only got 1 night a week or 2 nights a week, if he's paying his hard-earned, he wants to know what's in there. I want to know what's in there, you know? So straight away I wanted to produce a website that anybody could look on to see exactly what's swimming around in there. They could see the rules, they could see pictures of the lake, and they could get a really good sense of what they were buying into. Yeah.
So I'm just having a look at a few more. They're wicked.
They're pearlers, mate. Absolutely. Can we go down one more? Middle picture. That's Colin, who runs the syndicate for us. Absolute legend. I bet he's walked it. If you evened it out, I bet he's walked it every day for the last 10 years. If you averaged it out, because sometimes he's there 3 times in a day. You know. And he's got a young family, you know. I think he I don't know if he either manages one of his boys' football teams or is certainly heavily involved in it and gets time to fish. Yeah, I mean, that's October 22, so that's only a year ago. Yeah. But yeah, it was important for me for the website to be completely transparent. If you go on the list, it's posted on the website. You can see what number you are. There was no queue jumping. You had to go on the list for Stanton, didn't you?
Yes.
So you were part of the inception of the company.
Oh yeah.
You interviewed Matt Pettit, and as a Korda employee, were you a Korda employee still at that time? And wanted to get in Stanton?
Yeah.
Were you an employee or were you?
No, I was employed, I think.
Right.
Well, maybe not, because it was 2010 that I left. So
right, but employee or not, friend or not. If it's an existing venue with a waiting list, you go on the waiting list at the number that's available, like anybody else.
You've mentioned transparency a couple of times, Dan. It's obviously something that's important to you, but I guess for people looking in, they probably also want to know how Embryo works, and And is it a charity, Dan? Is it how does it?
Do you know what, mate? It should have been, and I should have looked into it more at the start and registered it as a charity. What I was worried about is a board of trustees telling me how to spend my own money.
Yeah.
And saying, no, you can't do that. And I'm like, no, this is a dictatorship.
Yeah.
But the dictator is a genuine,
yeah,
decent person who wants the best for angling. He's not just going to drag as much as they can out of it as possible and take advantage of the whole scenario as much. I've never taken a penny out of Embryo. I never will. And well, if it makes a profit one day, I should have asked the boys downstairs what we're overdrawn to Korda at the moment, but it's something to the tune of about 9 million quid that's been lent by Korda to Embryo to buy these lakes, to take these leases on, to buy the fish, to pay the staff, to build the website, to pay for the 2 guys in the office. Obviously great expense at the beginning of any syndicate, whether you buy it or lease it, fence, fish, infrastructure, car park, swims, website, all that sort of thing. A lot of expense at the start, rent if you're renting it, and then over time that money is paid back by your memberships. And what we hope is that on places that we rent, we hope that they break even in 15 years. So that we hope that we get back to zero, not make a living, get back to zero in 15 years. So if you carry on doing that, they all take 15 years to start washing their own face. You're massively, massively in debt, But I didn't care because Korda could afford it. I didn't want the money personally. I was quite happy with my lot in life. And what I did want to do was create fisheries because I love creating things from nothing. And it does give such a sense of achievement to see the fruits of that labour.
And obviously, one of the things that you were keen on from the word go with Embryo was that profits, should they appear, would be invested back into fishing,
into angling, or into education, particularly the sort of personal development training I've had through the Thrive program and that. We're rolling out. We've started a charity now called the Ean Foundation, and Ean stands for legacy in Japanese. We have a habit, Kamakura, Kaizen. Yeah. We have a habit of using Kazuko House naming for this place, which means family. We have a habit of using Japanese words. I wanted to call it the Legacy Foundation, but it was already taken as a charity. So the Ean Foundation, ISAN, and basically some of the money that we put into that foundation will be used to put local kids through the Thrive program, because it's all about self-awareness, self-confidence, having a productive, progressive mindset, to be able to achieve everything you want and have great peace of mind and happiness in your life. And most importantly for the young kids locally, to go beyond perhaps where their living circumstances have currently limited them to, to push beyond what their parents think is possible because of their limitations of their education, their role models, mentors, people for inspiration. Maybe they didn't have enough of them. And to give these kids the tools to go beyond all of that and achieve their wildest dreams in life, and we've started training someone to train the kids over COVID. So I'm not going to lie, it's stalled a little bit, but the idea was with Embryo that eventually, if it turns a profit, money would absolutely be reinvested into angling. I'd like to grow fish on that get given to somebody else that we have absolutely nothing to do with, given to a club or whatever to improve their angling. Because it's all about my sort of mission in life is to make the world a better place through fishing. Fishing is the thing that I love. I like making things better for other people. I like contributing to other people. That's what fires me up. And Embryo is a way, is a vehicle for doing that. So basically, when I'm dead and gone, Embryo basically becomes the ownership of the Ean Foundation, run by a board of directors, and carries on. All the assets and everything go into that charity. They don't go into my estate. So Norton Disney that we've bought, Stanton that we bought, as long as there is fishing, Stanton will be a fishery because we own it. So until the bomb drops or the meteor hits or whatever, and we're all fried to bits, there will be a Stanton.
What's the best way for people to engage with Embryo? Because some of these waters you talk about are waiting lists already, aren't they?
They're full waiting lists.
So someone's interested in becoming part of Embryo. They look at their local fisheries. What's the best route into these things?
Well, you have to. If you look on the website, you can see the lakes that have got open waiting lists or haven't. What we'd normally try to do is keep as many people on the list as we've got members. So one of our other big things is when I fished in all the syndicates I fished prior to Embryo, I saw the same faces every single week, because the same blokes had the same jobs and the same time off. Some were shift workers, some were self-employed, whatever. So they did Monday and Tuesday night like I did, and I saw the same guys. The weekend guys, I never saw them. So I thought, why have we got everybody having a full week ticket when most people can only fish Friday and Saturday night or Monday and Tuesday night? Why not have, instead of having a syndicate of 50 people who can fish all the time, why not have 25 who can fish during the week and 25 at the weekend? And then when it gets really good in the spring and everyone takes holiday to take advantage of it, the lakes aren't packed. Mm-hmm. They can't be packed because there's only a certain number of members there. So we've all done it. You rough it all winter. You earn your dues. It's just getting warm. You know exactly where they are, what's been happening over the last 6, 8, 10 weeks, whatever it is. And then the world descends on there and you can't get in the swims that you want, even though that you've paid your dues to learn it. And I wanted to do something that basically stopped that happening. So if there's only 25 guys, there's only 25 guys, and some of them hardly fish it at all. Some of them fish it occasionally. Some of them fish it regularly. That's the way it sort of worked out. And we found that weekday members that can fish Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, they pay the same as the weekend guys who can fish Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But you can have more weekday members than weekend members for some reason.
Okay.
So you've always got, you might, on Stanton, say there's 25 weekenders, there's 35 weekday guys, and still the footfall is the same. Everyone signs in, records their captures, and that's basically to see how the lake is progressing and to have a clear view of the footfall. I know I've got off track a little bit, but it's important this, because if people want to join. So most clubs and some syndicates have got a finite number of members. They cap it at 50 or 100, or in clubs situations 1,000 or whatever it is. And of that 1,000, 964 don't even fish there anymore. They still carry on getting their ticket because it's 40 quid a year. So the club's got 15 lakes, and they're only fished by a handful of people. So you can never get on there, but there's never anybody fishing. What a wasted resource, So I thought, if we work it on footfall, if there's 25 weekend members and there's 10 swims on the lake, say, and every weekend there's 9 blokes there's too many members. So when people drop out, we don't renew.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yep.
Similarly, if there's 25 members and each weekend the footfall, which we don't count Sundays because it's so quiet, so the footfall on Friday and Saturday averages out 2 people, and there's 10 swims, and our target, we want 4 there a night, say, then we take more members on. And that's how it works. That's how the membership evolves. And generally what happens at the very beginning, loads of people buy a ticket but don't fish it. They're all waiting for tomorrow when they all get £40. So at the start, you can have a lot more members and still have the right amount of footfall. As the fish creep up into bigger weights, more and more people want to fish it. You have to reduce your membership numbers, increase the price so your revenue's the same, and it balances itself out. There are years when it's too busy and years when it's not busy enough, but that's what we're always working towards.
What an incredibly involved process that is, though, for
especially if you're doing it remotely on 20 different lakes. Most syndicate owners are there all the time, aren't they? They know who fishes it. It's Bob and Dave and Phil, and they come down on a Monday.
So who ultimately sees that data? Is that you?
Yeah. So we get it in the signing in books. All that data gets completed by the syndicate managers, who are just volunteers. They're doing it because they love the lakes. And then we get it, and at the end of each probably 6-month period, we look at it, and we use that to decide whether the price needs to go up, the membership needs to go up, or the membership needs to go down. We also look at the size of the fish in the lake and how they've progressed. Some lakes we've fed to make the fish bigger. Other lakes we haven't needed to. Obviously, that feeding costs money. You might spend two grand on pellet. Well, that £2,000's got to be paid back somehow. So you need to increase your membership price the next year to pay for it. So to answer your original question, ring the office is probably the best thing. Tell them the area you're in or where you're interested to fish, and they'll tell you if there's anywhere available, because they know off the top of their head. Are there any waiting lists you can get on, or are there any lakes you can get straight into? And then the waiting lists are cleared in the spring. One of the other things we've done, or I've done, is membership turnover is in June. So renewals is in June. Matt didn't want to do this. He thought that people would join all their other syndicates in the spring, not have the money to rejoin our places, and then we'd struggle for members. And when the lakes didn't have as much to offer in size of fish, maybe that happened. But now it doesn't happen. Everybody that wants to rejoin does rejoin. But what it stops is all the new members flooding in April, and again smashing it to bits at the best time of the year,
right?
When the existing members are waiting for all them fish to get their biggest weights, and then suddenly the world descends on it because all the newbies have come on, all super keen. So Elstow used to do this. The start of their season was January. I remember Tim Fromont, who's one we should have on the podcast, 110%, by the way. Teacher Tim. Yeah. Amazing guy, amazing character, amazing angler. But he said, Dan, don't knock yourself out in them first couple of months. It's granite hard on Elstow 1, and you'll burn out before it gets good. So forget about it until like April, you know. But obviously some people did, as soon as they got the tickets, did start fishing, and it sort of evened out the rush, if you like. We do it in June when the fish have already spawned, when the regulars don't really want to be there because they don't want to fish for fish that are
they come back in
6,
September,
8 pounds.
August, September,
September they come back. So all the newbies can arrive in June. There's no fish that are targets for them, so that anything they catch is an absolute result. They get it out of the system over a couple of months, be part of the furniture of the lake, fabric of the lake, and then it all sort of blends in and runs nicely. So around May is a good time to ring up and find out if there's going to be places coming up on the waiting lists, and it's persistence with that. Once you're on the list, you're on it. You're not being taken off it. When you get to the top of the list, it costs 40 quid to go on it. That comes off your first ticket. That just stops time wasters. We had loads of them. People to go on 5 lists because it was free, you know, and then you couldn't get in touch with them for any of them. And that all cost money, you know. If you're ignoring a phone call from Embryo, Rob or Ryan are on the other end of the phone trying to find out if you want to be a member, you know. And considering it's run at a 9 million quid loss, pick up the phone. Do you know what I mean? Answer the email, you know, like have a word, you know. So what was I gonna? So yeah, so you pay 40 quid, comes off your first year's ticket, so you don't lose the money. If you get to the top of the list and you don't want a ticket, we'll put you to the bottom of the list once. But we've effectively marked your card. If you get to the top of the list again and don't join, you're off the list and you've lost your money. That might take 20 years on some of the lakes. Certainly it will take 5 years on most of the lakes. And that 40 quid does in no way pay the administration costs of having you on the list for that amount of time and all the turnover of it and everything that goes on in the background. It should be 100 quid, really, to go on the list, and it probably will go up. But these are all things we've learned over time, that people are lazy.
And if it does go up, then you're going to get a quicker turnover, which suits everybody, right? It's on the list, that is.
When we installed the 40 quid rule, we lost hundreds of people off of our waiting list. If you weren't prepared to pay 40 quid to stay on it, you were gone. If you wouldn't get back in touch with us, you were gone, you know, and it ended up being just the people that wanted to be members, which is the way it should be. And when you ring them, then they respond, you know, because they're invested already, you know.
And then your mate who might want his ticket in the future can get on the list and have a realistic chance of getting on there. Yeah.
I want to spread the love. I want as many people to get to fish the lakes as possibly can.
Obviously, someone has to make a call on stuff like the weekday membership, the midweek membership, and you're using a lot of your experience and your own.
We're using the data to make a call on how many people.
Yes.
I mean, at the very beginning.
At the beginning, in terms of rules, in terms of the way you were going to organise the fishing.
3 times the number of swims is what we normally go on as a membership for each rota. So 12 swims, 36 anglers on each rota. The other thing I should say, there's 12 good swims if it was run by
No
by,
carp corner,
by,
isn't-
there's
isn't
no
on-
no carp corners, no. If it was run by a money motivated commercial enterprise, there would be at least twice as many swims as there are. At least twice as many. So we work on at least an acre a swim generally, if not more. Some of the big lakes are 3-4 acres a swim. You know. Yeah, what was it?
So I was just thinking about the the fact that you are having to bring to bear a lot of your experience, and some of it may be, your opinions on the way fisheries should be run. Have you found it
my
universally
opinion,
well accepted that, or do some people fall out with the ideas that you have?
Yeah, not every, even some of the syndicate managers don't like it.
Right.
We've got some lakes that are 7-day tickets because they were 7-day tickets before we rescued them, took them on, however you want to call it. I still don't agree with it. I never will. But we've bent to the popular opinion, but in my opinion, it's a dated way of looking at it.
So you aren't like a dictator at the top of Embryo. You are listening.
No, I do listen to people.
Yeah.
I might not agree with it, and I give them their chance to see how it runs. But if the data says the footfall Monday to Thursday is non-existent, and Friday and Saturday's oversubscribed, we need to change it.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're doing with these places, we're respecting the members that were members right the way through the old management situation and us coming in to manage it. And those guys have been used to a 7-day ticket forever, so we're maintaining that so as not to upset the apple cart. But those guys hardly ever fish during the week. Hardly ever, even they've got a 7-day ticket, but it's you need buy-in from the people running the lakes for you. The syndicate managers do an amazing job of running the lakes in their own spare time, and they do loads of time. Some of them it's like a second home. I'm like, and you boys got to go back to the missus, and they're like, I ain't going there, mate. Let's someone put the kettle on again, and it becomes almost their back garden.
We need to talk about broader brushstroke stuff with Embryo, Dan. Where are we now with it? How many waters do you have? Where's it? Where are we going?
Type, can you pull up the website so I can tell us how many waters? They're not every single one is up here because.
And obviously we've got day tickets in the mix here, haven't we? So
yes. So if you go venues, syndicate venues, they should all be separate ones now. So keep going. So 1, 2, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 20. That's 20 different lakes. So you see there's South Ings Pit 1 and 2, South Ings Pit 3. They're on the same ticket, but they're 2 different lakes. Because I want to keep a track of the stock in those lakes, it was all mixed up in one. So they're looked at as different lakes. So 20 different lakes.
20 lakes plus your day tickets.
Well, Baston's got 4 lakes. That's not even on there. So that's 24. We've got more coming online over the next year or so. Plus, let's go onto day tickets.
Does Embryo have an end point? Is this going to?
No.
Will you just continue to buy lakes?
Well, I can't anymore because Damien's told me not to.
You said that a year ago, and I'm sure stuff's happened.
No, the same remains.
Yeah.
So you got 2 different aspects here of day tickets. So
Mark
Foy that you can see in the middle there. We've started up another company called Embryo Family Fishing.
I've just got to say, it's a phenomenal picture. That I took that.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
I was going to say
it's a bit far away, whoever it is, but your horizon's almost straight as well, mate. So
not bad for me.
Not bad for a match angler, Ato.
Yes,
So Embryo Family Fishing basically came about. Mark Foy applied. That guy who's the guy on the left there with the hat on. Applied for one of the Gigantica bailiff jobs, and he was brilliant, could do the job stand on his head, but in all honesty he was too good, and he had a missus. She was going to stay back in England, and I thought, young guy, missus, very, very talented. He's probably going to get bored with this quite quickly, and he's going to get ag from the missus. So I said to him, look, Mark, I've got good news and bad news. And I might have told you this before.
No.
He said, go on then, what's the bad news? I said, you haven't got it. And he's like, right. So we said, what's the good news? I said, you're too good, so I want to hire you for Guru. to create a guru match academy or match fishery, match complex. And he was like, oh my God. He worked on the railways, very good job at the time. And he took it, and then we couldn't afford to buy anywhere because of the situation we were in cash flow wise. And that these match fisheries are in the millions of pounds to buy, ones that are already done because the money they generate and the size they are. So basically, very adaptable guy, had to be in that situation, and he carried on helping Guru. He's organising a lot of the shows and events, does loads of kids' academies. You know, he's really, really into teaching young anglers
He's a legend.
He is a legend, mate.
I've done a lot of work with Mark. He's brilliant.
He's a legend. Yeah. So then we had this lake at Broome. So if you go, well, we don't need to go back onto syndicates, but there's 2 syndicates at Broome.
Yes.
And we had that lake in the offing as well, which we were going to turn into a stock lake. It was already fenced. I said, look, can't we open it up to a sort of dad and lad sort of situation where you're behind a fence? So if you take your 2 kids down and drop them off, they're reasonably safe.
That's brilliant.
What's that?
Under 18s fisher free.
Yeah.
Free with an
Yeah.
adult.
Yeah. Well, like I said at the start, you know, I thought about them lads that wanted to get into it that couldn't, you know. It's a little bit remote to get youngsters down there, but, you know, if mum and dad want to drop them down there, you know, they can pay for the tickets online.
It's actually the same lake Guru filmed their first
underwater
It
on.
was at this lake, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I've been down there with my little girl. But me and Jimmy Armstrong went down there. I had such a laugh with them.
It's a brilliant.
like his little boy. What's his name? Huxley. Yeah. Such a cool name, man. I'm terrible with names. So within minutes, Huxley's doing press ups in front of Violet, trying to impress. Do you know what I mean? And Jimmy's like, I don't know where this has come from. Like, I've never seen him do this before. And I'm like, good lad, you know, turning it on. You know? But them two, like, did drawings. Me and Jimmy had to, had to judge their drawings and who did the best drawing. But they fished as well. They caught fish on the pole. There's loads of roach in there, and we caught carp like that as well. You know, so that was one of them. Then we've got another one at Norman's Cross, the same sort of setup. There's a carp lake and a coarse lake next to it. Again, that it's probably go a bit further down. Norman's Cross Back Lake, that one.
I like the fact that you're developing it as you go, almost on the fly. You're like, no, we could do this next.
We're making the best of whatever we're given, mate. We really are. You know, I mean, these Norman's Cross Lakes, it was a club fallen into rack and ruin, hadn't been restocked forever. The carp lake now has been fenced, which was almost impossible because of the terrain, because it's a quarry, you know, so you've got banks like that, but they still got it in there. That one is impossible to fence. So and still allow the angling around it, I should say. And they're aimed at pleasure anglers and young anglers that want to fish for anything that comes along, and they're a great place to put fish in. You know, if we've got excess fish elsewhere, they're a great recipient of those. You know, so it's making the most of every bit of blue that we possibly can and aiming it. I mean, these ones are not that popular at the moment, but as they get more well known, you'd like to think, like Mum's, that one's behind a gate, that lake's not behind a fence, but it's remote. Yeah. And if you drop your lads down there's probably guys on the syndicate lake. You can't guarantee they're 100% safety, but it's safer than going to a park lake in Peterborough.
I mean, it sounds like you've got a big marketing job on as well to get this stuff.
To get that stuff going. But Mark is running that element, that embryo family fishing. There's another one, if you go back, Tobe, there's another one at Langholm, which is local to Mark. Is that on there or not? No, go up. Isn't that one on there? Is it Lang? Sorry, Langgold. Yeah. Langgold, not Langholm. That top right.
Top right.
That's it.
Yeah.
So that was one that's council run. Yep. Council run, very close to Mark. He fished it as a kid. We've taken that on, running it for the council. We're developing the swims, and helping to restock, you know, and just generally improving the quality of the angling and the service provided as well with embryo volunteers and bailiffs. Mark does loads of kids events, so if you go onto the Embryo site, mums and dads, if you want to take somebody to fish who's never fished before, or just help them fish better, Mark runs these events on all of our embryo family fishing lakes all the way through the summer.
I just want to second that, because I've been to a few of his events. I went and did some promo for him, and they're brilliant, mate. They're so well run. All the kids are so well looked after, and mate, they just all love it.
Could it be the most important thing you do next for Embryo is to try and get kids through?
Bringing more kids into it, and there are more and more plans when it comes to that.
Like, those days are wicked. Like, they all loved it.
Yeah, I mean, it is a very general description. Syndicates secure angling, day ticket grows angling. That's how it works. Okay. You know, and all of these are helping to grow angling. You know,
I think that's a really good spot to dip out of the UK for a minute.
Yes,
because Embryo is going to go into Europe. Has gone into Europe. Why does Europe need Embryo? Why is Embryo interested in Europe?
Well, I'm interested in Europe because it's only me. Everybody else had their hands full. I don't know if have you heard of the term Dan grenade?
I can imagine.
Have you heard of this?
Yeah.
I have heard of this.
Things are running smoothly, and Dan walks into the room and throws in the Dan grenade. I don't know if Damien came up with it or what, but it's like, okay, I want to develop 2 carp lakes on the moon. I know it's not been done, but and I want it done in 3 weeks. It's that sort of scenario. And because Embryo was running really well, I do loads of foreign fishing. I see what all the setbacks are in Europe. Your car's not safe. You're not safe a lot of the time. There's no camaraderie. It's every man for himself. Swims are rotated by anglers for months, if not years on end. The names get the best swims on the best lakes, and nobody else gets a look in. You're absolutely chastised if you put anything on social media about anything. It's deemed as totally uncool, and it benefits the privileged few rather than the many.
And was this a view that you had seen reflected back from the guys that work for Korda in Europe? Were they able to report
definitely.
That's the way things are on
their
the ground?
tyres getting slashed,
right.
getting cornered and threatened. If you put that fish on social media, we're going to have you. Like serious threats, and that's still going on now. So whilst they've got amazing fishing, better than us, they're very, very lucky over there. I've got to fish quite a lot of different lakes with people like Derek Harrison and that. There's so much water, so many amazing lakes. Some of them are extremely well run. And that's the thing, the whole thing with Embryo, we're not looking to take lakes off of people that are doing a great job. Not at all. I've got no interest in having my name over every lake in the land, contrary to what everybody might say. We just want to make places fisheries that are not fisheries, or rescue lakes like Fields Lake in Oxford that had been ottered to death, no fence round it, completely overgrown, 9 carp left in it. It's now a thriving fishery with 640s and about 30 or 40 30s, fence round it, thriving syndicate, brilliant membership. Everybody gets on, amazing syndicate managers. That is the epitome of the Embryo model. And I thought, if we can do that over here, why can't we do it over there? There's more opportunity in terms of venues, in terms of water. There's not an otter problem, so we haven't got otter fence everywhere. So the costs of rescuing a fishery or starting a fishery from scratch are much, much lower. It will become a problem because they are being reintroduced, certainly into lots of parts of Holland now. So I want, and there's so many massive lakes, as I'm sure you're aware, in Europe that are not exploited at all, not even stocked, as far as we're aware, with carp. And do you remember me and Pecky went to that German lake, Oschlagersee?
Of course, yeah.
For the what was it called?
Yeah, the low stock masterclass. Was it? No. Was it Spring Masterclass?
Was it Spring Masterclass?
But yeah, I did the second. I didn't do the first trip. I did the second trip.
Did you?
Is it that long ago when it snowed?
Yeah.
I wasn't there when it snowed.
You wasn't there when it snows, but you were there on the next week.
Next one, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, okay. I don't even remember that, Rich. I'm sorry.
No, so I was with Daryl, that's why.
Oh, right, okay. Right. Yeah. So those carp that we caught there, among the best in the world, among the best I've ever caught. absolutely the best in the world. Imagine if we could harvest that spawn, which I'm hoping we can, put them into our fish farming facility, which we've acquired in Europe. So we've got a fish farming facility, running water in and out, ponds from 1/4 of an acre to 5 acres, all drainable, all shallow, proper fish farm. Imagine putting them in somewhere that's safe from bird predation. It's got no insect predators and that sort of thing in it. It's been done properly, like a Simon Scott place, and growing them on, and then spreading them around Europe to all these amazing lakes. Imagine putting 200 of them into a 300-acre lake with a load of big ones. You remember the low stock? You were there, weren't you? That was the no plate debacle, wasn't it? On the first night.
Yes.
Yeah, the bucket lid situation. But imagine getting the commons from that lake, arguably among the best commons in Europe, growing them on, and then filtering them, mixing them with their mirrors. Super water, absolutely, and doing it then at an affordable price with a membership where all know each other, where it's not dog eat dog, secure parking so you can leave your car and go to the other side of 100 acres and know it's going to be there when you get back and not on fire, and just create some of that camaraderie that we take for granted in the UK. Because every lake that you fish in the UK, even if it's got a few, less than social characters on there, a few weirdos or whatever, most of the regulars get on, don't they? They do. If you fish a lake over and over, you get to know people, and there's a friendship sort of circle in it. And I'm sure that does happen in Europe, but I want it to happen more, And that's my ultimate dream is having loads of these syndicates which are affordable. They're not the cheapest, they're not the dearest either. They've got the best carp you can possibly imagine under the safest and most amazing conditions. So I'm not looking to take waters off the VBK, or they were really worried, the Belgian Carp Society, we're going to take all the... Not interested in that at all. They're doing a great job of it. I want there to be more lakes like that so that more people can get on them. That's what I want it to be. And our level of swim building, car park infrastructure, stocking comes at a price. You're not going to get it for 80 quid a year, because that's on a lake that's been stocked many, many years ago that the VBK perhaps haven't had to pay to stock and have just inherited that stock. So our outlay is much greater, but we're going to produce a great product, So that's the vision for Embryo. It is not to take lakes off of people and turn them into pay lakes, which has been bandied around. And I think that's been compounded by the fact we've taken on a pay lake complex and a pay lake that already were pay lakes, with the view to enhancing them. Certainly the Carplantis, if you want to go on that. Carplantis is in Northern Holland, run by Koos Waters. Do you know Koos?
No.
Get him on the podcast, man. What he don't know about fishery management isn't worth knowing. Honestly, he cut his teeth on all the French holiday venues, worked and lived with all the fish farmers, knows them all implicitly, and then started his own lake up in the north of Holland. Actually, no, you've got to go onto the Carplantis site because it's not on Embryo yet. So if you put in Carplantis, mate, you'll get that. But basically, 18-acre, fairly square lake, 50 foot deep in the middle, right? This is how into it is.
Is this the right one, mate? Yeah.
That's it? Yeah. There will be a gallery of fish somewhere that you can put up. 50 foot deep in the middle. He's created this thing called an airlift, which is a sort of... I haven't been out to look at it, but I'm guessing it's a square ring of flotation devices. Big. Like what the things you go on when you're on holiday, the big old banana boat jobs.
Yeah.
Like 4 of them touching each
amazing,
other.
right.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And then a giant tube is suspended from the surface down to within 10 feet of the bottom in 50 foot. And he's got these things that create a mass of tiny bubbles in this tube that creates a vacuum and draws water up from 50 foot and sprays it out on the surface. And if he leaves it on for whatever many hours, he can affect the thermocline in that whole lake, 18 acres. He can change it in a few hours. So, and what he's noticed is the fish don't like going below the thermocline, generally. Not all the time, but generally they don't like. You can see the thermocline. Have you ever seen one on on an echo sounder?
No.
Just comes up as a line on the
Right.
echo sounder.
Yeah.
It's not the water that like the difference in density, or it's not that. Apparently, algae sits on top of the thermocline, and it's the algae that you can see on the echo. That's what I'm told by Coos. So that's he designed that from scratch. It's got to be wired in, so it's into the mains, and he can turn it on and literally change the composition
Circulate
of that
water
lake.
through that lake.
Yes,
Yeah.
There's power in every swim. You can park behind every swim, obviously. All the swims have got, he's made them out into the lake, into the reeds. They've all got their own drainage, so they never get muddy or anything like that. Running water in every swim. Just to put that around 18 acres is
What made him want to give all that up, Dan, or to
he lost his father.
right?
And very recently in the last year. And I think it got him to really take stock of life, as these things do. Reflect, do I want to be down this lake every day of my life forevermore, earning a good income out of it, but do I it comes at a price. It does. You have to be there all the time. And he wasn't going to rent it out to just anybody. And Michiel, that was running Embryo Europe at the start, unfortunately he's not with us anymore, but he built up a relationship with Coos for buying fish as much as carp lenses. I mean, look at them, look. Just,
Deep-bodied, Dan, aren't they?
everyone handpicked. Look at that one, that first one. You can't. I don't think you can enlarge it, but that one there, they're my kind of carp. Here we go. That's my kind of carp. That
Big
is
as well, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a male, I reckon. Massive fins, but they're them scattered scales all over it, and the colours are a little bit turned up.
Yeah,
And
of
it's
course,
not. It's not the sort of picture you would take, is it? Most of these are on phones. Because that's the world we live in now. Go back, Tobe. Let's have a look at some of the others. That one, second row down on the right-hand side, that's an app. No.
Right.
Keep going. That one.
Yeah.
That's got to be the big one, isn't it? Look at that.
Incredible. Yeah.
Look at that. That is a joke, isn't it? If that was in a public lake, people would spend 5 years of their life trying to get that bite, wouldn't they? That is insane.
It's massive,
isn't it? Old, wrinkly, So it's a very deep lake. You're fishing in 18 to 20 foot as a minimum, unless you're right up against the reeds. Go further down. And
do you think English
coast.
anglers would like to visit this one?
They
Dan?
do, mate. They do.
Yeah.
That's the thing. But obviously, we've taken it on. There's an existing. See, everyone's waxing lyrical about these, and these aren't for me.
Small. That's
I'm not
stockings.
an angler, but I think
a bit too orange.
I think that looks mega.
A bit too orange. And I don't know, just certain scalies really do it for me. Maybe if that was £20 bigger, it might do it, But
We'll see. You never know what they're going to be like, do you?
But everyone loves these.
Yeah, right.
You can catch five sort of big old wrinkly ones and catch one of them and be waxing lyrical about.
I want to see.
There
was a super black one, Tobes. Like it looks almost like it might have a bit of koi in it or something. That one.
Yeah.
Yes,
there. Right. That's click on that. That's core. Look at that.
Yeah.
Different level, man. That's Core, right? Core, COR. We've interviewed him when I was at the lake in December, and I interviewed Core for about 20 minutes. He's like the local hero. He's caught virtually all of them, and we got all of his tactics out of him, ruled by bait boats and boats.
Okay.
The lake is no casting goes on there at all. It's there to be opened up by a caster, so I'm definitely going back. But him and his mate, they live locally. They did a week's fishing. I think they had 30 fish in a week, and they averaged over £40. That's mega, isn't it?
Yeah.
And they look like that. And he didn't do the days. He went to work because he lives around the corner. So he's got his own car business, and they're doing nights and catching them. That might have been that session. We go back again, Tobe. There's a coast is actually there. Is the next picture to that one you just looked at. Oh, it's all the order's changed, isn't it? Right, no,
Sorry, go on.
it is that next picture. That one.
Yep.
That's Coast, yeah. There he is. That's the
One
man.
who's fish, yeah.
Yeah. He used to have KGB baits.
Don't know it.
KGB Baits was a big bait company. I knew him from Zwolle.
Yeah.
And he, believe it or not, he caught or helped me to catch one of the fish on the underwater at Linear. Right, so we were talking about underwater films, and he said, Dan, I've done loads of underwater filming. I've got a camera like at the end of my garden in this lake. Da, da, da. He said, if you want to get a quick bite, Dan, don't put any bait in, just put a single in, because we're baiting up every morning on every one of them. So on the one at Linear, I put out a single pink one day, put no bait in at all because of him, and caught the first fish that came in the swim.
Amazing.
So he knows his stuff, Absolutely. Mate. He's been around. Great guy. And he's still there in the background. He's sort of making sure that it carries on. We've carried on with all of his rules.
That depth of knowledge on a venue like that, can you?
You can't. You never stop learning, mate. Do you? No. You never stop learning in your angling or your fishery management business. You know. So, he's a great resource, and he will be there in the background, making sure it carries on going in the way that he wants. We've taken on the lease. We've actually found, like, he was fully booked almost when we took it on. People have avoided booking because they're worried about the change. You know, what are we going to do? You know, the answer is nothing. The rules are all the same. The pelleter that he buys, that he designed, is the same. The stock is the same. The price is the same. Everything is the same. All we've done is put one of our bailiffs in to be at the lake 3 days out of 7. So we're not someone breathing down your neck trying to sell you stuff or anything like that. Exactly the same. So I'm hoping the people that were holding off commit, and basically it's a draw system like we have at Gigantica. It's Friday to Friday because Coast didn't want to work weekends, so he did the changeover down to Friday, which I thought was good, which means our bailiffs don't have to work at the weekend that are running the lake, but they will be there 3 days of every 7. Basically it runs under exactly the same rules. You can hire boats and echoes when you get to the lake if you want. You can use a remote boat. You can protect your own boat, you know. Basically you double up in swims. So there's 8 anglers on 18 acres, which is tons of room. I think the difference we can make to it, I think we'll continue to build the stocks. We've got our fish farm now, so as we grow them, if we get them German fish, imagine a few of them going in there.
Amazing, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? A few of them big commons, you know, imagine them going in there at 12, 15 pound and putting weight, you know. So we'll carry on to bolstering the stock because, you know, it's known as a tricky lake. The results are obviously there. Cora's shown that, you know. If you know how to angle, that's why the English love it. It's almost like the Dutch Gigantica, if you like, because that's deep as well and takes a bit of working out. If you want somewhere that takes a bit of working out and they're not crawling up the line, but if you get one, you know, it blows your mind. That's the sort of place for you, you know. So basically we've taken that on, and if we look at Carp Arena, which is on the Embryo site, Carp Arena was 2 pay lakes out of 4 lakes. 2 were completely unfished, stocked very sparsely by the owner, but completely unfished. No swims, trees overhanging the whole lot. So let's have a look at the map first of all. Toby's a great shout. If we just look at that.
Just wanted to jump in, mate, by the way, because I know time is a factor. Yeah. We're about 5 to 6.
Right. Okay. Cool. All right. So basically, Clover Lake has been fished for the last probably 30 years. Warwick went there years ago.
Did he?
Years ago, because DeConnick, who own it, used to own a tackle shop, a very famous tackle shop, DeConnick, in the north of Belgium, and that was on an industrial estate just over the way. And I think Frank did some open days there and got the chance to fish the lake. So it's got a rich history of real big uns, you know. And then Rosemere, on that map, mate, Rosemere, the one to the north of it, that he stocked that with a load of fish from Hungary, the same Euro-Aqua strain. So they're going to get big. Obviously, it hasn't got the diverse sort of range of fish that Clover's got, but per acre, it's probably got more big uns. You know,
1 hour from Calais, decent down as well, isn't it?
56 minutes from the Euro tunnel. You blink and you're there. You know. So that really makes a difference, doesn't it? Very, very close to Germany as well. There, I think it's 3 hours from Cologne. Some of the bits in northern Germany, it's 30 minutes from some bits of Germany. Do you think these will be seen as lakes for English people to visit, or are you hoping to attract people from all over want
Europe?
It to be international.
Yeah.
I really do. You know, I really it's more aimed at domestic you know, Belgians and Dutch, and some Germans because they're close. Yes, we'll get loads of English going there because it's cheap as well, you know, because it's not Gigantica or Carplantis standard for the number of big uns. It is cheaper. If you go down to Clover, click on Clover Lake, mate, we can have a look at a couple of the fish at the top of it. That's Clover there. That's it. There's your picture. So it's only 6 anglers on 17 acres. Keep going down, mate.
What is that one?
I know, mate. I know. Keep going. Which one, mate?
On the right.
Yeah, it is further down. Right, if you click, actually the best picture of that dino is not on there, but if you click on that dino and go to the next picture, that's a great shot of the fish. And the next picture, the other side,
looks a bit like a welly fish.
That's the known big one at the moment. Yeah, well, the welly fish might have come from Belgium, mightn't they? This might have come from Germany. They might have all come from Germany. You know, that's a mega carp. So that's Rude, who's the chairman of the VBK. So he's now doing our social media for Embryo Europe, which is a real rubber stamp of approval that he's really behind the whole project. And he, you know, Mikhail, bless him, when he worked for us, he went to see the VBK and these other groups that were really worried and spelled it out to them. We're not after your lakes. We really are not. They're doing a great job. They're serving a great group of anglers. Carry on. You know, we want to do stuff of places like here was restricted. Go back to the main shots, mate. Click off of that fish. There's a really nice one called the Pearl if you go down below that. Yeah, on the right hand side, that's a mega carp. Look at that. You know,
looks like a young fish, Dan.
Keep going through. So that dino was one of the originals, probably one of the ones Frank was fishing for. Look at that shot of it. Rude had that in the same session as he had the dino.
So is this just before you've been out there, Dan, haven't you?
Yeah. I went out there in the summer. So that one that you looked at at the top is the next one down. Yes. Keep going down one. Click on that.
That one.
Look at that.
40 number 1. Yeah.
Yeah.
That.
The other side of it's even better.
Mate. Yeah.
Look at that. You know, and we reckon 250 fish in there. We've only got pictures of 70. We've put out a shout out. Please send us your pictures from the last couple of years. People don't want to because the money's gone up a bit. Doesn't matter that we've put showers, toilets, new swims, running water, power, and you get a boat in the price as well. Proper brand new rowing boat you get in the price. Things have changed. They're not getting it for the song they were getting it for. It's still cheap. That's €395 for the week. That's not a lot of money for a week's fishing, to fish for 40s, 50s and 60s. And it's a beautiful lake as well. So there's that one. Rosemere, like I say, has got these Hungarians in. And then we've stocked. If you go back to Lily Pool, that's one of the smaller lakes on site. I mean, that one I caught, that one in the middle there, just while we're looking at it, that one there. Yeah, that was on the... No, that you're going to go through to the swim now, mate. Because that one you can book individual swims because that was the old regime.
Yeah,
you could book a swim. So we've kept with the same thing. That's what we're not trying to upset the apple cart on purpose. We're trying to gently, steer things in a certain direction, but not cause too many ruffles in the meantime. Mm-hmm. But if you go back to the lakes, the whole complex, mate, go back one, and then go down to Lily Pool. That one, that's the biggest original common. Matt caught that in the summer, spawned out of 38. I reckon that's been up to 45 prior to capture. But we stocked that with 75 fish. Look, that's a nice carp, that, isn't it? That's going to be a big one. Perfect mouth. Probably never been caught, So the owner put a handful of bigger ones in. We reckon there's about 5 or 6 that are 40 plus in there that are the old guard. Plus he's put a load of scalies in there, probably about 40 scalies, young fish in there. Matt caught them repeatedly, but Matt didn't take pictures of them. This was one he caught while we were there, so we managed to get the shots out of him. So if you go down to the fish, so that 40 number 3 is a stocked fish.
Mate. Looks great.
We bought 75 fish for this lake. Keep going down, mate. Those 3 are all originals. Look at that 30 number 3, £38. That's a mega carp. They all are, aren't they? All of them. Heart-shaped tail on that middle one. That's another original. That 38, that's a 40. That's caught in the middle of summer, spawned out. That's easily a 40-pounder. But all these ones, if you just go through them, mate, don't click on any, but just go through these. All these went in at the same time in November. Never been caught. Matt went down and picked them. Matt and Rich, Rich picked them. So the guy in the middle there is Rich Holden. He's one of the embryo absolute stalwarts, one of the, the unsung heroes. He like Matt, they look like special forces, don't they? Because they are special forces. They're a bunch of odd people, do you know what I mean? Like all different characters, all got their funny ways, but I'd go to war with them any day. They live and breathe it. Look at that one with a single scale in the middle of it there. That's the bollocks, isn't it? 31 pounds, just one of many. So that lake, there's no food included in this, but with all the facilities, car parking right next to the swims and everything else, that's €295 for the week, an hour from Calais. Nothing. That's 250 quid. It's nothing, is it? It's a fish for them fish, So as they get bigger, of course, the price will go up. And you can see the pedigree of these carp. They're going to get massive, aren't they?
Yeah.
You get a boat in with a price as well. There's 2 double swims on there, so you're both doubled up. You're all on the same bank, super social. Use a boat, put your rig anywhere you want it, boat your bait out if you want, go out in the boat, play the fish.
Lovely bit of fishing, Dad.
Lovely bit of fishing, yeah.
And that is...
that's we've done those because Mikhail at the time when he worked for us felt we had to take on these pay lakes to finance the whole thing. Right? Embryo Europe in the first 2 years is £500,000 down. We've got one syndicate called the Dragonda.
Yeah.
That's got fish to 55 in it. No one wants to fish it because the big one's died, which was a 60-pounder. It's crazy, That's the same model as your Stanton or whatever, Not the cheapest, not the most expensive. Weekend, weekday, right down when you're there. Well, they actually there's an app for them that they sign in on, so we can regulate the numbers of anglers. But no one's fishing it. There's a 55-pounder in there. No one's fishing it. It's crazy, Every fish, I think there's been 28 different fish out. We said we wouldn't stock it until the big one dies because it's an old carp. I'm not putting 10 new ones in and it dying. It died this spring, unfortunately, which is like what a kick in the nuts. Do you know what I mean? We hadn't done anything to the lake. All we've done is drag the weed a bit. And that was months before. So this winter we've stocked some fish. Only 10 maybe. But I don't want to turn it into a runs lake. It's a low stock, difficult lake. Keep it like that. Nice swims to fish rather than poking through a hole in the thing. Boundaries so no one's going in your swim. A progressive stocking policy like they've all got, so it just gets better and better and better over the years. So we've had to take these pay lakes on, one because Mikhail insisted on it and we went with his judgment on it. Unfortunately, he then left. So we're now left with these lakes that we have to develop and get right, which we are. They're opening, Carp Atlantis is open now, and Carp Arena will be open the beginning of April. And the profit that comes from them will allow us to hire another Mikhail, who then tries to secure lakes that are not currently fishing lakes or ones that have failed as fishing lakes, turn them into amazing syndicates and carry on the embryo project in Europe. We've not even touched Italy. We haven't got time to touch Italy, and we need to come back and talk about more about. We haven't talked about Norton Disney. Do you know what I mean?
I think we should get. I think we should get some. We should ask for people's questions on embryo as well.
Yeah, ask for people's questions. It'll be great to have Ben here as well, who runs Norton Disney. He can talk, so he'll probably keep up with me. If it was me and Matt, you wouldn't hear anything out of Matt, would you?
No,
we're going to do that.
But he probably would have caught a 35-pounder. What's going on there, Matt? Oh, you've had one, have you?
I just want to say, it's something we're going to do more of, I think, this year, isn't it? We're going to throw, questions out to the audience.
Definitely, I love that. I love that.
Anything that people want to know.
Guys, put the uncomfortable ones in.
Yeah.
If you really want to know and you want to put us on the spot, I've got nothing to hide. I'm immensely proud of this project. Who else in angling has pumped 9 million quid back in with no clue whether they're ever going to get it back? I do it because I love it. I love creating fisheries, So I've got nothing to hide. You ask me anything you want, and I will answer it. Don't just blow smoke up our arse. Give us the
we
difficult
want more of
questions
that,
too.
On this show,
challenge us.
Yeah, on this show and others, we're gonna get the audience involved a lot
Definitely.
more. So
It's a great thing. They're all listening, thinking, "Oh, I wish I could
Absolutely,
ask
and that's
that."
it.
Wish they were sitting there and they could ask.
Exactly.
You know?
And then, so we're gonna, everyone keep an eye out. There's gonna be a lot more of that.
In the end, we just get rid of Rich, can't we? And you can just read the questions out. Yeah.
between Rich and AI,
that'll save us 200 grand a year, won't it? We're gonna spend it on fish for Embryo.
Job done. Sorry, Rich.
No, on that note, I'm going to go cry. Nice one, Dan.
Cheers, mate.
See you
Thank
soon.
you.
Yeah.
The Thinking